Hi, I'm Miss Hadi from Olympian High School. I'm going to be using the Traditions and Encounters textbook, chapter 40, to help you learn about consumption and cultural interaction. So we're starting on page 1141. We're on consumption and cultural interaction. One of the things we've been studying is the diffusion of American culture and also how other cultures from around the world are impacting American culture. And this is largely because of technologies that have made national boundaries less of an obstacle for sharing information and sharing ideas. So one of the big takeaways from this section that you want to know is that all of these new communications media have led to a global cultural integration. That means the world is becoming smaller, cultures are mixing together, and one of the characteristics or hallmarks of that is an increase in consumption. So purchasing more goods, not necessarily things that you need, but things that you want. And this is not hasn't always been the case where people have excess money and they use it to buy things that they need, although in the past we could talk about things like conspicuous consumption. But we really start to see people purchasing things as a way of self-expressing what they appreciate, what they like, what their personality is. Okay, and a lot of that is influenced by the American advertising world and by American media. So this is an outdated book. It was written a long time ago, and now it's 2021 at the point of this particular video is being made. So now we have even more communications technologies. Like I said, all of the different social media apps that foster more communication between cultures about different cultural ideas. So in the past, when we were looking at this, when historians were writing about this, they were writing about, does this potentially mean that the United States is exporting their culture to other countries and it's homogenizing those cultures? Homogenizing comes from the word homogeneous, which means something being similar. So when you're having a homogenizing effect, you're making the culture similar. So there was a fear that places throughout the world were going to become too American. We call this the Americanization or the McDonaldization of cultures around the world, where, for example, American products started to displace local products, or American cultural fashions like blue jeans and certain rock star bands start to become more popular than local fashions and local bands. So this was a concern, a fear that this export of American culture was leading to Americanization or McDonaldization of culture. But one could also argue that cultures are coming into the United States and having an impact on American culture. For example, you could talk about Spanish culture or Mexican culture, or other cultures being having an influence on American culture. So although some people might say, well, it's not fair, it's not even, it's more one directional than the other, there is evidence that we're seeing the cross cultural impact, not just one direction, not just America influencing other cultures. So we could see this through, for example, we talked about advertising being a big reason for this sharing of American cultural values and American things. Like American music is known all throughout the world. I've been, in a place like in a restaurant in Amsterdam, and people are breaking out in song and English songs. They know the lyrics. Products like Pepsi and Coca-Cola. I've been to China and seen Pizza Huts and Kentucky Fried Chickens. So this is how we're seeing the diffusion of American culture throughout the world. And sometimes that has a negative effect on local cultures. For example, the closing of local stores or local coffee shops in France. However, sometimes people take, the American brands and they differentiate them to suit local tastes. So we talked about, the Sara and Dara doll. And sometimes those products are preferred because they're local from a specific place. So for example, Italian leather has a certain cachet that people appreciate, or some products are appreciated because they are known to be specialists from that region. And you also see the influence of Latin American culture on American culture. The book gives the example of the famous Eva Peron and how popular she became in the United States. There was not just a musical about her, but also there was a famous film called Evita starring Madonna, and you could potentially watch the whole film for extra credit. This is a famous line from the Evita movie. This is Madonna performing it.
Don't cry for me, Argentina. The truth is I never left with you all through my wild days, my mad existence. I kept my promise.
So this is an example of culture coming to the United States from Latin America, and it's going to continue to talk to you about Latin American culture influencing the United States with like MTV Latino, people speaking Spanglish, a combination of English and Spanish, and other examples here. So, you know, we could have a debate about how much does the United States culture influence other societies, and then is that like a dominating thing? Is that going to lead to homogenizing effects, or do we still see those cultures impacting the United States equally or to a certain degree? We could talk about that, but there is a fear or a concern about this homogenization of culture due to American advertising and new communications technologies. In the next video, I'll talk to you about the age of access.